hockey. Yeah.
My favorite. It's Judd's Hockey Show.
The Wild might be on break. Cancun, Barbados, exotic locations. Judd's Hockey Show never rests. Judd, AJ, yes, the Wild is off for a week plus, 2 weeks basically. But first of all, on the back end of this episode, we're going to talk about what was a fantastic game to start the Four Nations face-off between Sweden and Canada last night. But before we do that, my curiosity was piqued about a week and a half ago when Scott Wheeler of The Athletic was issuing his prospect rankings age, and he put the Wild 2 in the entire league. They were like 1 or 2 a couple of years ago, and then they fell back because guys came up to like 12 or 13, which is no indictment.
Yeah, as should happen.
Exactly. That's positive. And then they're back at 2 now. Only the San Jose Sharks, according to Wheeler, have a better, I guess, call it farm system. So I thought to myself, who better than the Score North JHS prospect guy, AJ Fredrickson, to give us an update, to tell us who are the top 5 prospects. If there's this much excitement, if there are guys ready to come up here in the next, 6 months, year, 2 years, who are the top 5 guys that we should be keeping an eye on either at juniors or in the college ranks or perhaps elsewhere? So, without further ado, AJ, give me the top 5. Go 5 to 1, 1 to 5, your choice. The Minnesota Wild farm system. Why is it regarded as being so good?
Yeah, and I'll start actually here with a few honorable mentions that maybe are just missing that top 5. One guy I'll start off with very quickly we can gloss over because I know this is polarizing for a lot of Wild fans, and I know you have a very strong opinion after watching him earlier this season as well. But Charlie Stramel is an honorable mention because he's had a bounce-back season after a horrific post-draft season with Wisconsin. He transferred to Michigan State to play under Adam Nightingale, who he was already familiar with as a coach. But they've gotten him back to kind of where Judd, he strengthens his game, which is he's big. He's a decent skater for his size, but he plays athletic. His strengths complement like his competitive and physical forechecking, his middle lane style. For a guy that I think a lot of people wrote off after a very bad year with the Badgers, he's now bounced back, and a lot of scouts are projecting him to end up probably making the NHL, being a consistent guy, but as a bottom 6 center. So I think right now, like if you took this team and you could take Charlie Stramel in like 3 years, he probably fits in really well on that third line as a physical, big center type guy for a checking line that maybe offers some scoring here and there.
So perhaps a certainly contributing player, but will remain a reach as a first round pick, no question.
Yes, I think absolutely. When it like, obviously year to year you have different strengths of classes and whatnot, but where he was taken, right, especially with another guy I'm going to mention here in the honorable mentions, like he is going to end up being a little bit of a disappointment in terms of just where he was drafted. I'm sure he'll be a decent player. But another guy that joins him in the honorable mention group is Aaron Kiviharju, who is that Finnish defender who was, I want to say, a 4th round pick by the Wild. His story is really awesome. He's got 14 points in 41 games over in Finland this year. But this is a guy who, like, since he was 15, has been regarded as like one of the higher end professional defensemen in the country. Until he was, I think, 17, he had a injury that he needed ACL surgery. A lot of people didn't think he was going to be able to bounce back from it. He comes back, finally is able to make the World Juniors team. He captains them to I think, pretty surprising silver medal most recently that a lot of people saw over the holiday time. What benefits him, he is so smart on the ice, Judd. Like, I don't think a lot of his skills maybe would put him in the elite category, but he's above average at a lot of everything. But his mind, he processes the game so quickly. He is super smart. He's able to take gaps. He knows when to pinch. He knows when to back off. He can recognize maybe when his partner will step up and take himself out of position so he can then drop back and cover. He's very smart. He can walk the line pretty well, but he processes the game at a super high level. He is like an ice general, a field general, if you want to use the football term. He sees the ice very well and processes the play very quickly. Exactly. Yes.
So, quick question or observation off of what you just talked about with Strommel and this kid too.
Yeah.
It does feel like Judd Brackett, who is the Wild's director of scouting. He's basically the point man for the draft. It feels like they have done with him, and he came from the Canucks, highly regarded, a really good job of finding value. So like if a first round pick might not be great, they do get guys, to your point, fourth round, third round. Is that a correct observation? It feels like they're getting. It feels like even if the first round pick is not great, it's not like the rest of the draft is necessarily a waste, and in fact can be pretty good.
Yeah, no, I think you're spot on. And it seems like they're a little more reserved at taking stabs at guys, if that makes sense. They, in the first round, maybe the first 2 rounds, bracket seems to, I haven't identifying like, okay, we know who we want. Maybe we'll take a stab at a guy who has a higher upside. But when it comes to rounds 3 and later, it seems like they're looking purely for upside guys who maybe been overlooked or they feel like hit that big growth spurt of development. And that's where guys like maybe a Stramel, they're hoping flips. But you do have Kivi Haru, who people look down on because of solely the ACL injury. He had that surgery. Finnish, I'm not, I guess, mainly known for having great defenders. There's some pretty solid ones that would come out of there, but I think when you think Finland, you're thinking like hardworking, forward center, blue collar. Imagine that, but now on the blue line. So yeah, I would say it's a pretty apt idea of how they kind of go about the draft.
Okay.
One more guy who does finish out the honorable mentions, who we'll just touch on quickly before getting to the top 5, is actually the guy taken second behind Charlie Stramel in that draft a couple of years ago. Riley Heidt, a 19-year-old center who's playing with Prince George in the WHL. He's a second-round pick that many agree now should have probably been flopped. Like Stramel should have been the late second instead of the late first, vice versa. He was the only pick behind Connor Bedard in the 2020 WHL Bantam draft, so that kind of speaks with how good he's been as a teenager.
Wow.
He led the WHL with 117 points last season. He's dropped off. He's on pace for like 95-ish this year, but that's mainly assists. Goals is on pace to be exactly the same.
Okay.
Assists, though, could be teammates around him, maybe not finishing certain chances. What I do like about him, though, he's 5'11", but he plays bigger. He's a strong skater. He's comfortable using physicality to body guys off the puck. Mm-hmm. Good spacing. When it comes to a center too, how many times do we say we need a guy to win a faceoff dot? I think he was third in faceoffs for the WHL last year. So he's been a very reliable guy on the dot when it comes to junior hockey up in Canada. Tracking to probably be like a top 6 guy, maybe middle 6, depending on how much he grows before getting to the NHL.
Okay.
We'll head though to the top 5. And as I say that, I think I actually just I skipped 5 when I was typing stuff up. So Riley Heidt, number 5.
Riley Heidt, I was going to say, how can he not be in your top 5? And now he is suddenly.
Going to number 4, then a guy who I think a lot of people had at like 1 or 2 the past couple of years, but this season has really taken a step back in terms of just what we've seen, what we have maybe projected. We have heard some pretty in-depth stuff from him mentally. Jesper Wallstedt, the 22-year-old goaltender. Down in Iowa from Sweden for quite some time. He was regarded as like a robot to a lot of scouts with how he operates, whether it's on the ice, precise, quick movements, kind of similar to what we see with Gustafsson at times when he's on his game. The way that he processes and like measures up a shooter when they're coming down, he does that quickly, can realize, okay, based on where they are, he's probably going glove high here, that type of thing. Controlling rebounds. It hasn't really been there this year, Judd. He's looked very human for a guy that's been regarded as a robot essentially a lot of his hockey career.
Yeah.
And this is something that I know you have a pretty strong opinion about. We heard something that you described as not a normal conversation amongst athletes earlier this year, where he opened up, cut a vein about kind of the mental struggles that he's gone with this season because his play has been lesser. But what I'll counter with is a lot of scouts still believe that when he's on his game, like he contains rebounds very well. He's a guy that probably can have that top end type of workload when he does get to the NHL. And they're still tracking based on him getting back to what they know his game to be as a higher end 1A goaltender who maybe is not like the franchise type guy that a lot of people thought he could be when he was originally drafted, when the Wild traded up to grab him. But he'll probably be a consistent starter in the NHL. We just have to see whether or not he can find that game again and kind of push some of this this lesser season to the side and push forward.
Yeah, I don't think his abilities physically have left at all. I think that this has been a mentally wasted year, unfortunately, which, clearly started with his expectation that he was going to be with the big club for the majority of the season. He gets sent down eventually, in part because Gus is playing so well, right? And absolutely, couldn't stop the puck. He's been hurt twice. So it is very unfortunate that it's a wasted season. It is, I would be lying to say it's zero concern, but I also don't think physically he is taking a step back. I think that this is the mental side, and as we all know, in goaltending, that's incredibly important. So, yeah, I would think that with Fleury gone, retiring after the season, that Jesper's going to get every chance to win that job, and hopefully he can just sort of flush this.
And the thing is, even last season in Iowa, I guess I wouldn't say that they are, from my understanding, a defensive stout team.
Sure.
They allow a lot of shots. They allow a lot of goals. But the problem is last year when he was getting that type of workload, Zane McIntyre was his counterpart, and his save percentage was .880, countered to Wallsted's 910. So they're both losing and getting scored on, but he was stopping the puck more. Yeah. Now I'm not going to say it's flop because the backup is not doing anywhere near good. I think every goalie that they've had is under 900 for save percentage, but he has one of the worst on the team. So it's definitely been a regression this season. You hope that he can get back to kind of what they drafted him for. Moving ahead here, though, is a guy that we have seen a couple times now this season. I still keep him in the prospect route. And I want to clarify this. I know with the rankings that were released, you have guys like Murad Husnudinov and Liam Ogren, who are maybe considered prospects. For this case, I'm leaving them off. Murat's been with the team since day one this season. Yeah. In my mind, I don't view him as a prospect anymore. He's an NHLer.
Agreed.
Ogren has bounced back and forth, but I think the fact that he's gotten enough consideration, and he's currently with the team, I'm going to say that he's, for this discussion, not a prospect. But number 3 goes to recently acquired David Yurov, right-handed defenseman, 21 years of age, and we have kind of seen what he's able to do when he's confident. And that's the thing. He had a few games to build confidence, which was he's a big, strong defender who's pretty good on his feet. He's got great vision. He can move the puck around. He can push play offensively, going from defense to offense. There still is questions defensively, and we've seen him take himself out of position. We've seen himself maybe he closes gaps relatively well for a guy of his size. The problem is once he closes said gap, if the puck carrier is able to shift around him, he really has a lot of the times trouble keeping up. So if he meets him at the blue line, he might have to pivot, and then he loses a step, and all of a sudden they're in on goal. That stuff is something that I think the Wild, when trading for him, assumed our coaching staff, the way we're going to take care of him and develop him, probably can fix that and help him maybe go away from closing gaps off on the side and get in front of a guy with his size, which I probably should be the way to go. But as of right now, it remains an issue and something that fans should probably be wary of, because he's going to get out of position. He's going to be a liability at times, but you've seen what he can do offensively. His slap shot is booming.
Not afraid.
Unlike some other guys on the roster, his shots from the point hits the net. He keeps it low on the ice to allow for rebounds.
Zach Ocean hate.
Hey, you said it, not me. I love what he brings offensively. We just need to see the Wild develop him defensively as a defenseman should.
A perfect pairing guy for Jonas Brodin.
There you go.
Who would teach him and also make up for the deficiencies. I liked what I saw. I'm not going to lie. I expected a much more, in his stint here, raw player. I thought it would be a disaster at times. He made some mistakes, but there was a lot to like. And the mistakes looked as if, at least in the small sample size that we observed, that they could be cleaned up. So, yes, the Wild gave up a lot to get him. I can now see why. I remain curious why Columbus was so intent on bailing, but I guess that's a different story.
Yeah, and we'll have to see. It's similar to I think actually we've decided now that the Wild won the Kevin Fiala Brock Faber trade, but this is a one where it's tough to know how good he's going to be until we get 3 or 4 years out from the trade. So you can't really make a decision right now, but I agree in the short stint he's had, he looked like a more complete professional than I think what a lot of people had expected.
Yep.
Moving along here, getting to number 2 on the prospect rankings right now is the Yurov. 21-year-old, multifaceted forward. He can play in the middle. He made a recent move to that over the last calendar year. He can play on both sides. 13 goals, 12 assists in 45 games in the KHL this year. He's an exceptional talent that the Wild were able to get much later than I think a lot of people think he should have gone. I remember they actually, if my memory serves right, they selected Ogren and then I think traded back up to get into the first round or like move up a couple spots again to select Yurov. And there were a lot of concerns about how his team developed him in that draft year, which is really what was one of the main reasons why he fell so late. But he had an amazing camp. He kind of forced their hand and got into the lineup to be a consistent driving playmaker and offensive force. He put together one of the best age-adjusted seasons in KHL history by the end of last season. So not only was he the team's leading scorer, he finished the season with the KHL's all-time under-21 scoring record, which broke Vladimir Tarasenko's previous single-season mark, while also passing, familiar name here, Kirill Kaprizov, in that endeavor, and Evgeny Kuznetsov. So he hasn't been as productive this season, but he's still like driving offense. He's still helping his team win. The numbers just really aren't showing up there. So whether you want to take that as an indictment or not, I'll let you make your call there. His biggest thing is he's an excellent give and go player. He's great offensively. He excels playing in and out of space without the puck. His shot comes off a blade very quickly, and he's added in that little toe drag that a lot of guys do nowadays in the NHL. He's added that to his arsenal. He seamlessly, like mid stride, is able to get shots off. And he's very good for a 6'1" guy in all 3 zones. He can play defensively if needed, and his play going from defense to offense on odd man rushes is really exceptional and where he thrives.
Interesting. So, and he is expected to be here potentially next season. Is that correct?
Yes, that is the key there. He and I think a goalie for the Blackhawks, if my memory serves correctly, they both either got permission or stated they wanted to leave or something along those lines. Yeah. If everything holds true and that information is correct, I would expect him at a training camp, at warm-ups. I think he probably makes the roster because he is multifaceted, and that move to center really bolstered like how he plays the game to, I guess, like it changed his mindset of how engaged he should be. And there was a big change in that just because the roles from being a winger and a center are definitely different.
Right.
He does lack in the face-off dot. That is one issue I think.
Here we go again.
Granted, it's newer to him, so I'm going to.
So Kaprizov's center eventually is the ceiling. Is first line Kaprizov's center, right?
Yeah, Kaprizov's just gonna be playing both wings and center by the time every guy gets.
Well, not the rate he's going. We gotta keep him healthy.
Oh my gosh.
So before you get to one,
yes,
let's talk about our good friends at Popcorn, the best locally fresh popcorn and fudge on the planet, which right now has a limited edition Kirill Kaprizov and Marc-Andre Fleury 1-gallon popcorn tins that you're checking out right there. Enjoy your favorite popcorn products in these tins for only $26 and get refills on standard flavors for only $8. You can also win Wild Sweet tickets to the March 13th game against the Rangers. Come into the store in Minnetonka, scan the QR code, or if you're outside the metro, go to the following website, popcorn.com/pages/mn-wild. That's popcorn, P-O-P-P-E-D, corn.com/pages/mn-wild. The Kaprizov and Fleury tins are only around, by the way, while supplies last. Popcorn, I'm going to tell you right now, I've tried it. Absolutely delicious. Check them out again, popcorn.com, or give them a call at the Minnetonka store, 952-452-8808. Those tins are very cool, so get them while they last, and give yourself a chance to sit in a suite for the March 13th game against the Rangers. Number 1.
number one. And this should come as no surprise. If you have looked previously, for those of you who have checked out the Scott Wheeler and I guess Corey Pronman like prospect rankings, this guy sits behind only one guy. He leads what they call tier 2, as there's only one guy who fits in the top tier. That's Ivan Demidov, who was drafted this past season, actually above him. But Zeev Buium comes in with that number 1 spot, I think, to no surprise of anybody. 19-year-old left-handed defenseman playing with Denver in the NCAA. He's got 6 goals, 26 assists in 26 games this season with the Pioneers. Keep that in mind. Keep in mind that he is a World Juniors champion twice now in back-to-back years with the US of A. Aside from Demidov, Buium is regarded as the top prospect in hockey. If it's not that, he's probably top 3 for most other people. They capitalized by trading up to grab him after a very strong U18 season where he really caught stride. Exceptional skater, great hands, amazing puck sense, and vision that is just off the charts for passing. He's constantly moving, seems to be in the right position at all times. Defensively, he's active with great stick work and timing. Jumping up in the play, taking more space on puck carriers early on has really benefited his game at Denver, and you've seen that week in, week out. Physicality was a question mark. There was a point where one scout even was harsh enough and blunt enough to describe him as quote unquote soft. That has been put to bed. He heard the criticism. He heard the narratives around him. They've worked at Denver to already what was, I think, the biggest question mark. It's no longer an issue. He has shown that he's not afraid to step up, play the body. He's not a small guy. He's not a big guy, but he's not small either. He's been playing very tough every single week, and you could see that he's not afraid to get battered and bruised and be that time-eating, offensive driving, but also defensive when needed defenseman that I think any blue line's going to want. And he is showing that the Minnesota Wild, as soon as he's able, should come up and get in a sweater at the end of the year.
So opening night 2025-26, give me the blue line.
Oh, that's going to be tough because I need to check. It's just John Merrill that is coming off the books for them, correct?
But they're not going to keep Bogosian around, right, at that point?
You'd think not. So at the end of this year,
it'll be Spurgeon. Well, wait, it'll be Faber, Middleton,
and then I would go
Spurgeon, Brodin. So,
and then Buium, Yurchek.
Is Buium a right or left-hand shot?
Buium is a left, and Yurchek's a right.
Yeah, it fits perfect.
How about perfect? Yeah, and there we go.
You might put, like, I could see putting Brodin with Yurchek.
I would say
you could put Spurgeon with Buium.
I would say to start, especially given like just the injury history, and I'm not saying he can't be the captain still and all this stuff, but if Jared Spurgeon wants to take some minutes off and preserve that body a little bit more, get him on the third pairing.
Yeah, I'm fine with that.
Yeah, and then because I guess it's gonna be tough hand wise because they are gonna have to keep that in mind. But so yeah, you're probably right. So I would probably go. It starts with that Middleton Faber pairing,
left,
and
right.
then they probably go Brodin. No, yeah, probably Brodin, Spurgeon, and then
but I think it makes more sense to put the kids with the veterans. And Spurgeon can be a third pairing guy. That's fine. But he shouldn't play a ton.
But Brodin being left-handed, and I think Buium's right now miles ahead of where Yurchek probably is.
That's what I'm saying. Well, then, but my point is, Brodin is a great stabilizer, as we saw with Dumba for all those years. So I would rather have Brodin stabilize Yurchek. Buium's probably a more complete player. Put him with Spurge. And I mean, I guess at this point, I don't care what you call it, your second and third pairing.
Okay.
So,
you're doing like a 2A, 2B type.
Yeah, because your first pairing's your first pairing. I mean, Brock's on that.
Yeah.
So like that's that, and he plays a boatload, right? Mm-hmm. But beyond that, I don't care.
And I think at a point like next season, I would not be shocked if they wanted to shy away, change stuff up, and have a Faber Buium pairing that and eventually goes on to be that is what I want to see, and I don't think it's going to happen right away. But
righty lefty, yeah.
Once they're
no, you might be right.
Once Buium's acclimated, I don't see why not. Because that you have a really good defensively sound guy with Brock who can play offensively. He's shown that he can. But Buium, I mean, he is offensive talent galore, and now he's added the physicality in his defensive game. That is going to be a pairing that is going to be amazing for the Wild, and both those guys probably can get some special teams time.
And I thought what Zeev showed in the World Juniors was this, because you kept hearing, well, the offense, where's the offense? But then you watched him play, and the intangibles were off the charts. Like, he is such a smart player. That championship game, he made some absolutely huge plays. So,
and it was the stuff away from the play that he.
That's what I'm saying is don't get hung up on the points. Exactly. Like, it's not the points. It's what do you do? And it was impressive. All right, Sweden, Canada last night. First game, 4 nations. I promise not to complain, because once the hockey starts, it is off the charts. It is off the charts. Anyone who thought that this was an all-star tournament game type of thing, no. International competition. These guys will die to win. But before we do that, it's still cold outside. Snow still on the ground, but golf season around the corner, and that means Swing Lab is what AJ wants to talk to you about.
Yeah, and right now there's no better time to get the perfect club fitting for you. You know, your bag's been looking a little light. That driver, you know, the last season you were hitting it into the woods, and it was all the driver's fault. So you got to get fitted with some new clubs. So stop by Swing Lab to get fit with all new 2025 products, whether it's Titleist, Callaway, TaylorMade, Mizuno, Cobra, Cleveland, Srixon, and Lab putters. They're professional club fitters. They use data-driven feedback to put any golfer in the right clubs. Swing Lab's also doing 2 different giveaways. So if you're going to get some clubs fitted, you're also going to get put into a drawing for some Wild tickets, lower bowl tickets that right now, the first drawing is running through the end of this month, towards the end of the month, I should say, on the 23rd. That'll be for the game against the Penguins on the 9th next month. And then the second raffle runs from the 23rd through March 31st for tickets to the game on April 6th against the Dallas Stars. Club fitting and purchase required to be entered into the raffle. If you want some more information, check them out in Lakeville or go online to swinglabperformancegolf.com or give them a call at 763-453-5892. That's Swing Lab Performance Golf.
And when you're done with all of that golf, you're going to be undoubtedly thirsty. And that's when you want to turn to the official sports beer of the sports dad. And of course, everyone knows by now I'm talking about Padregs. Padregs, why are they good? Because all they do is beer. They don't do a bunch of other drinks. They're not trying to reinvent the wheel. What they're trying to do is perfect beer. And they've done that. I've talked about their red is absolutely fantastic. The English IPA, the Irish Dry Stout. I could go on and on, but you know what? I want you to sample them. Now, the good news, through a distribution deal that they now have, 6-packs available all throughout the Metro, Lunds and Byerly's, Kowalski's, Haskell's, Hy-Vee, Total Wine, which is huge, Cub, MGM as well as most independent liquor stores in the greater Metro and Rochester. If you can't find it, ask for it, especially at your favorite bar. I'm telling you right now, a good red, hard to find. Well, Padregs has perfected that. So check out Padregs and you'll find out why I love their beer. All right. Unbelievable game. Sweden, Canada. Canada blew two goal leads. The game went to OT. The Canadians come back and win it on a Mitch Marner goal set up by Crosby, who had a phenomenal game, 3 assists, number 1 star. But let's talk about the Wild players for Sweden.
Yeah.
Brodin scores. Eriksson Ek scores, and quite frankly, in a game that started and I thought, oh, the Gus Bus is going to get just killed. Sweden's going to give up 15 goals. Gustafsson comes back, and Sweden comes back and plays pretty damn well. If you're a Wild fan, 1, no one got hurt for your team, and 2, I thought it was a pretty productive night. And the Brodin goal, I thought was a weak goal on Binnington's part. It was a floater, and there's a chance he was somewhat screened, but I think it's still, in a tournament like that, especially, AJ, has to be stopped. The Eriksson Ek goal, he had no chance on. It was a great tic-tac-toe passing play. But I think if you're a Wild fan watching that last night, you're probably pretty pleased with how the Wild contingent played for Team Sweden.
Yeah, exactly. And for a team that I think you and I and Jesse and a lot of other fans maybe say, you know what, the Wilds guys, they get overlooked for certain areas. Like for I think on his game, there was a time when I think Jared Spurgeon was being overlooked as like a potential Norris Trophy candidate, not a winner by any means, but like in the conversation, but he was just nowhere near that. I think this is going to be a tournament that potentially, if they keep playing like this, Jonas Brodin, Joel Eriksson Ek, Phil Gustafsson, I think, has been getting some notoriety this season just by his high level of play to start the season. But last night, a couple blockbuster 10-bell saves to steal the Darren Pang, the Panger quote there.
Yeah.
They all looked fantastic. And Jonas Brodin defensively is very sound. You have said, and correct me if I'm wrong, that you think he defensively gifted is like one of the most defensively gifted guys the Wild has ever had.
Yes.
And I think he put that on display last night. The way that he closes out, and it's granted, how easy is that when you're paired with a guy like Victor Hedman for 25 minutes a night? That might be easier for him this tournament. But Eriksson Ek looked great, and it's funny that no matter where he goes, no matter what he plays, he can never quite get out of getting a stick to the face, getting a mitt to the face. He took that high sticking penalty, I think midway through the third. And it's just like, that makes more sense. But is it bad also? Because I know we're going to talk about it. He took that, and I'm like, please tell me it's just like a chipped tooth, nothing worse than that. Something you can play through.
I'll take a facial cut. Yeah,
exactly. Because I'll take that instead of what happened to Theodore, where Adrian Kempe, and granted, they've advertised guys want to play hard. Guys are playing for their country.
They're playing really hard.
Well, they played really hard because Shea Theodore's now gone for the tournament. Done. So Vegas is holding their breath to find out how long
it's going to be a while. I think he broke his wrist.
If not, it's probably a fracture. The way he went in,
yeah,
like jammed right into the boards, going full speed, just terrible. And that is exactly why there was trepidation here for this tournament. It's not going to be fun. It's not that it's not going to be fun to watch. That was fantastic hockey.
Yes.
I was on the edge of my seat pretty much from like the third period on.
Yep.
But there's always that lingering like, that looked a little rough.
Well, you just hope it's not your guy.
Yeah, exactly.
Like if it's the Golden Knights, it's unfortunate, but at least if you're a Wild fan, technically it benefits you. But yeah, you just hope it's not your guy. But I mean, last night the intensity of that hockey was, I think, beyond a first round playoff game.
It was
like, I think that was deep into the playoffs of I don't care what I have to do. Sidney Crosby, 37, I believe, if I'm not mistaken. 37.
Yeah, he looked like he was a 27-year-old.
He's incredible. So I'm watching that. 3 assists. The Marner assist is gorgeous. I've never seen that. So he creates spacing by skating into the Sweden zone with the puck, drops it. I don't know how. Like ordinarily, I'd say that's a terrible pass, but it's a blind pass that is on Marner's tape. And then hustles out of the zone because he's offside at that point. He gets out of the zone, both skates over the blue line on the correct side. Marner comes in and scores. Here's my thought. It is incredible, first of all. So give him total credit. But my thought is also, this is why I want him traded. I want this guy in the playoffs. Man. I mean, watching that, he's on it's not his fault. He's on a terrible team now.
No.
And I know he's a lifelong Penguin and blah, 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 blah. Okay, I get all that. But that skill, like he's nearing the end, I would imagine. But that skill, that performance last night, what a treat to watch. What a great player. But it's going to be bittersweet in April when that dude's on his couch. And it's like, this is what a hockey fan lives for, especially a great like that. So selfishly, I want to continue to see that. But that performance last night and the way that everyone on the Canadian team reveres him, like he is Gretzky now. Like he's that type of, oh my God, who am I playing with? It's Sidney Crosby. Mm-hmm. Just a fantastic performance in an arena where they're chanting Sid in Montreal at the Bell Center, and you could feel the electricity of that building coming through your television set.
Yeah, I know he took a shift in the second or in the overtime, and then he like didn't go out for a couple minutes. Like he was absent. I don't know if what it was. Maybe he caught an edge or whatever. Had to get
Said
new
he's been
steel.
hurt.
Okay, so
He damn near didn't play in the tournament.
But then, like you're saying, at the Bell Center of all places, Crosby, just raining down from the rafters, and he goes out there and does that. I don't know if you've seen this on NHL.com, but like I think it's new this season. They have the goal visualizers in the box score, so you can like. I had to go back and watch the goal essentially.
Yep.
His path for this is ridiculous. So he takes it from his own behind his own net, skates through center ice, just basically uncontested. He gets to the blue line and does a drop pass that I think if it was anybody in a green sweater for the Wild, I would be pulling my hair out.
Yeah, it's a blind and it's on his backhand too. So it's not the new thing where you turn around. No, it's incredible, and it's right on the tape. But then he knows it's going to be on Mitch's tape, and he beelines out of the zone. Anyone in the green gets caught offside. Like he created the perfect spacing too. It's the perfect play.
And I mean, he just continuing to do that work. The third goal for Canada, the Mark Stone goal, same thing. He starts in his own zone. He catches a pass, exiting the zone, skates up the wall, and it was Gustav Forsling who did a very good job to like drive him wide.
Yep.
But then it was like a very pretty pirouette spin pass to Stone, who was not really being covered by anybody. There was two guys around him in yellow.
Was that Zibanejad? Somebody sloughed off him really badly.
It was Zibanejad, who all you have to do is just put a body on him and he doesn't get that shot off.
And he's strong. It's going to hurt, but you got to do that.
But Judd, he's just phenomenal. The Penguins cannot be like, you've won enough. Help the rest of the hockey world now and trade him. Because frankly, I think you would be able to get a haul.
Yeah.
He's affordable for him. He's affordable. And they've already said they're willing to eat a lot of cap space too. He's got an extension. So teams that are trading for him can plan for that. He's got 2 years coming up on an extension at 8.7.
Yep.
Because he's obsessed with that. 8.7 for Sidney Crosby. Granted, it'll be 38, 39-year-old him, but he looks like a guy who could play. I jokingly said another 10 years. He could probably play another 3.
I am all for the Wild standing pat, unless Billy can get his old friend back and reunite him with a Flower for one last run. Last thing before we go. I think we saw it last night. I think we saw the future. 10-minute 3-on-3. Gotta have it. And I will say this: those are the best players. So it's not going to be the same when it's 32 teams. And teams are going to have to play guys that they don't play now in the format. But that being said, it beats the shootout any day of the week. I think you got to go to it.
Yeah,
I think you got to go to it.
I'm not as anti-shootout as I know you and I think Jesse are.
Yeah, I hate the shootout.
Like I'm more in the camp of the game has to end. You know, it's game 33 of 82 against the Sharks. I don't need them playing endless overtime. Yep. Let's wrap it up. But I think you're right where I'd rather see the the game decided in any form of overtime rather than going to a shootout.
Yep.
Either do the 10 minutes so you can get extended action, or if you keep it at 5, you have to put in the over and back. You can't leave the zone after a certain point.
That's where I like the 10, because I think what the 10 would do is it would incentivize teams to go back to the way that the 3-on-3 was at first, which is we got to score.
Mm-hmm.
Like it's like 5 is so short and you shorten up your bench so much that you basically play for, at times, the shootout, right?
Yeah.
At times, because it's like you're right. You're retreating. You're passing back. I think in the big picture, the 10 would incentivize teams. Because are you really going to try to play 4 corners for 10 minutes?
Yeah.
And that at some point in time, your third line guys are going to have to play. So, but I'm just saying, I liked it. If nothing else, it gives a lot of incentive to end the game at some point. because that's a long time. But anything that replaces a gimmick, I think, is great. But that was unbelievable last night. So much fun. Tonight, the U.S. and Finland. I think it might be a rout. The Finnish are so
really quick before I agree. I think I'm scared for Finland. If the U.S. doesn't win by 3 or more goals, I would be shocked.
You're out.
But really quick too. Do you think what you saw from Binnington last night, was that good enough to win this tournament? I don't think so.
Oh, it's interesting. What I saw in the second portion of the third period, and the OT certainly was. He's so weird. He's a big game goaltender. Of all the Sweden goals, I actually, I thought the first one was a little bit, the Brodin flip I didn't love.
Yep.
In that tournament, I thought that the second goal should be stopped. The Eriksson Ek goal,
no chance.
You're not going to stop that one. But here's what I'm very curious to see. The Connor Hellebuck that we see, is it going to be regular season Jets or the last couple playoffs? He's got some, and the Jets have not played well in the playoffs, but that's the one thing. Hellebuck, what do we see from him? Do we see this guy who's been phenomenal, or does the pressure get to him? Because I'll say this, for Binner, that dude lives on Pluto, so he lets in some bad goals at times, but I don't think the pressure, he's just such a weird guy. So,
yeah.
But the Canadian skill, I really thought at the first part last night they were going to cream them, and they didn't. So the Canadian skill is phenomenal. The loss of Theodore, who's going to be replaced by Sanheim of Philadelphia, will hurt. But what a game. What a game. All right, we are done. I think we might be back tomorrow to, if you got the time age, to talk about the U.S.-Finland game, because this is going to be lots of fun. And we will talk to you then. Judd's Hockey Show. We'll see you later.